Clint Eastwood stepped closer, the soles of his boots brushing against scattered pennies and a few wrinkled dollar bills lying beside the girl's cracked speaker. She had no idea who was watching her. Her eyes stayed closed, her voice trembling with power and pain, painting the air with something too real to ignore. The lyrics weren't perfect, but they were honest, each word like a thread pulling at the hearts of strangers who'd forgotten how to feel. For a few moments, everything stopped. The traffic light turned red, then green again. People missed their buses. A delivery man paused his route. No one moved. They were all held captive by a song that had no music, but somehow filled the entire street. Clint crouched slowly, ignoring the gasps and phones pointing at him. His hand reached into his coat pocket, not for money, but for something more meaningful. A small black notebook, worn out, with years of ideas, memories, and half-written thoughts. He opened it, tore out a page carefully, and scribbled something down. Then, without saying a word, he placed the folded paper gently beside the girl's speaker. Her voice faltered for a second, as if her soul felt something shift, but she kept going. Clint didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply nodded once, then turned around and walked back into the crowd. A man who had faced wars, fame, loneliness, and time itself, brought to a pause by the voice of a forgotten girl on a sidewalk. When she finally finished and opened her eyes, she noticed the crowd, and then the note. She picked it up with shaking fingers, not yet knowing the weight it carried or the man who left it. But the moment she read it, her knees almost gave out. Because what Clint had written wasn't just a compliment, it was an invitation, an opportunity, a turning point. She stared at the note, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. "You have something rare," it read. "Meet me tomorrow, noon, at this address." Clint. Her hands clutched the paper like it was made of gold. Around her, people started talking, some in shock, others with tears in their eyes. A few clapped. One old woman placed a $20 bill into the empty guitar case. The little girl didn't know whether to cry or laugh. No one had ever seen her before. No one had ever truly heard her. But now, in a single moment, the whole world seemed to shift. That night, she didn't sleep on the cold sidewalk. A kind couple who had seen Clint with her insisted she stay with them. They gave her a warm meal, a hot shower, and for the first time in months, she slept in a bed. Still, the folded note never left her pocket. She woke up before sunrise, heart pounding, unsure if it had all been a dream. But it wasn't. She made her way to the address, a small studio on the edge of town. The walls were covered with instruments, framed memories, and quiet energy. And there he was, Clint Eastwood, sitting by a piano, sipping coffee, waiting like she was the most important appointment of his life. When she walked in, he smiled. Not the movie star smile people knew from posters, but the smile of someone who had seen a spark of light in a world full of shadows. "You came," he said. She nodded, speechless. "Let's record something. Just you and the truth in your voice." Her throat tightened. "Why me?" she whispered. Clint looked at her like the answer was obvious. "Because pain that raw, hope that strong, it can change people. And the world needs that right now." She stepped toward the mic, barefoot, wearing the same oversized sweater she'd slept in. But in that moment, she felt like the most powerful person alive. Clint moved behind the glass, gave her a thumbs up, and the music began. At first, her voice trembled. Then, like a river breaking through stone, it rose, pure, cracked, honest. The sound filled the room, spilling into the hallway, down the street, through the studio's open window. A man walking his dog stopped. A woman in a passing car slowed down. A delivery guy paused mid-step. By the time she hit the chorus, people had gathered outside the studio, listening. Clint sat there in silence, eyes locked on her. He knew this wasn't just a song. It was a cry, a prayer, a miracle. When the last note hung in the air, there was silence. Not because no one cared, but because no one could speak. The kind of silence that only shows up when something sacred has happened. She stood there not knowing what to do, until Clint walked in slowly, clapped once, and then simply said, "Let's make an album." She laughed, tears running down her cheeks. "I'm just a homeless girl," she said. "Not anymore," Clint replied, handing her a key. This is to your new apartment. Rent's paid for a year. And that, he pointed to the recording booth, that's your new job. You sing, I'll handle the rest. Her knees buckled. She grabbed a stool, trying to breathe. This wasn't charity, it was belief. Pure, simple belief in who she was and what she could become. Word spread quickly. Radio stations picked up the story. A video clip of her singing went viral. Celebrities tweeted about her. Offers came pouring in. But she stayed with Clint. He wasn't just her producer. He was the man who had stopped, listened, and believed when no one else did. Within days, her life turned into a whirlwind. News crews camped outside the studio. Labels called nonstop. But she stayed grounded, spending her mornings singing on that same street corner where it all began. Only now, not for coins, but for joy. Crowds would gather to hear her voice. Children sat cross-legged on the sidewalk. Old couples held hands, swaying. It wasn't just her voice that touched hearts. It was her story. A homeless girl with nothing but a dream, rescued not by luck, but by the kindness of a stranger who happened to be Clint Eastwood. He never once acted like a savior. He stood back, letting her light shine. He coached her when she got nervous, calmed her when she doubted herself, and reminded her every day, "You've always had this in you. I just helped you see it." One evening during a live concert in a small theater packed to the roof, she stood under the spotlight and said, "You all know my name now, but once no one did. I was invisible, cold, hungry, singing into the wind, hoping someone, anyone, would hear me. Clint did." The crowd clapped, but Clint, sitting in the back, just smiled quietly. He didn't need the credit. She continued, "This is not a song about fame or fortune. This is about hope. For anyone out there struggling, wondering if it's worth it, don't stop. Keep going. Someone's listening. Even if it takes time, someone's listening." Then she sang, not for money or applause, but for every lost soul who ever dreamed in the dark. Her voice echoed through the hall like a promise. And Clint? He stood in the shadows, eyes glistening. Because he hadn't just changed her life. She'd changed his too. The days that followed turned into a movement. People from all over the country started sharing their own stories of struggle and hope, tagging her in their posts, sending letters to her studio, and showing up at her street performances just to say, "You made me believe again." One day, while she was performing a small acoustic set in a community center, a little girl walked up with her mother. The child held a crumpled piece of paper, a hand-drawn picture of the girl singing on the street, with Clint standing beside her. "I want to be just like you," the girl said. The singer knelt, eyes welling with tears, and whispered, "You already are. Just don't stop singing." That night, Clint visited her recording session. He brought 2 cups of coffee like always, and sat in the corner quietly listening as she recorded a new song, one she wrote for the streets, titled, "Where They Thought I'd Fall." When the session ended, she handed him a small box. Inside was a delicate silver chain with a tiny street microphone as a pendant. "It's from the corner where we met," she said. Clint held it for a long time, speechless. Then he said, This is more than a gift. It's proof that a moment can change a life. And you're proof that hearts still hear music, even when the world tries to silence it." From that moment, they created a foundation together, one note at a time, dedicated to helping street musicians find not just an audience, but a future. Thousands were helped, hundreds found homes, and through it all, she never stopped singing, not for fame, not for money, but for the little girl in herself who once stood alone in the cold, believing that maybe, just maybe, someone might stop to listen. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss more inspiring real-life moments like this one. The foundation, one note at a time, quickly became more than just a charity. It turned into a family for thousands of dreamers who had long been ignored. Street corners once filled with silence were now alive with music, poetry, laughter, and hope. Across cities, small stages were built with signs that read, "Everyone deserves to be heard." The girl, now known by her stage name Melody Ray, traveled from city to city with Clint by her side. Not as a celebrity, but as a silent supporter, always watching from the wings. In one of the towns, a teenage boy named Leo, who had been kicked out of his home, picked up a guitar from a donation box left by the foundation. Melody listened to his trembling voice and saw a reflection of her own past. She brought him on stage that night, and as the lights hit his face and the applause filled his soul, Leo smiled like he'd just met himself for the first time. Backstage, Clint whispered to Melody, every time we lift someone up, it's like we're planting a seed in a world that forgot how to grow. Melody looked around at the kids tuning guitars, writing lyrics on old napkins, sharing snacks and songs. Then let's keep planting, she replied, until the streets sing louder than the silence ever did. And they did. As months turned into years, Melody Ray's voice became a symbol of survival, and Clint Eastwood's quiet presence remained a reminder that greatness doesn't always shout, it listens. The foundation they built together kept spreading, lifting voices from shadows into the spotlight. But for Clint, it was never about the stage or the praise. It was about that one girl on that one day whose trembling song broke through his silence. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Melody stood on a grand stage surrounded by thousands. Cameras flashed, people cheered, but she looked out into the crowd, searching for the same old man in a simple jacket. Clint was there, smiling in the back, hands in his pockets, proud not just of her, but of every voice she helped awaken. As her final note echoed into the night, tears filled the eyes of people who'd once forgotten how to hope. And with that, Clint turned and walked away into the crowd, leaving behind a world forever changed by kindness, by courage, and by the simple power of listening. If this story touched your heart and you want more inspiring true stories like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss the next one.